Hello and welcome to BrewTapcast. I am Tap here for another Flesh and Blood video. Today we will be going into our Tales of Aria Budget Blitz Precon upgrade. So we've been doing these for the past couple sets. I guess it was really just Monarch when they had those come out. But we really enjoyed making these decks that they sell, LSS sells for our, stock decks, and then buffing them up, making them a little bit more exciting. So today we're going to be going over Briar. So that is our video. But before we get into it, I just want to encourage people to check out our Discord. So we are trying to get a lot of people in there, have some tournaments, have some giveaways, and, really just try to have fun and cultivate a nice sort of easy budget community. So please check that out, and we look forward to seeing you there. All right, let's jump into the deck. Alrighty, so here we are. This is the base deck that LSS sort of drops out onto you. So before we get into going into it too much, so prior in Monarch, cards were a lot more expensive. There was a lot less supply, so first edition cards were very expensive for no matter what they were. Anything was just sort of like, bumped up a little bit. With Tales of Aria, there's a lot more cards available, so the dollar amount that we used to go for, which was $50 essentially, which is the base deck, or actually, no, I think it was $25. The base deck is like about $10 or so, and then you have $15 of upgrades. Doesn't really apply here because everything is so cheap except for the Fabled Legendaries, and we're not going to do those at all because this is a budget deck. So we really just call it, all right, cool, we'll just go with 4 majestics. So you can have any of the cards you want, and only 4 majestics. So that's sort of where we are landing on as our budget term for this. So this is the based deck for Briar. So we have a whole bunch of different cards here. It is a roughly a little bit more earth heavy deck. There are some lightning cards. We have a couple of Rites of Lightning. We have Electrify Flash, Lightning Surge, stuff like that. But outside of that, it's not super lightning focused. It's more earth focused. And right now, the Lightning Briar deck is kind of, we're in the heart of Nationals right now, and that is the kind of the deck to beat right now. And there are decks, and I'm sure the meta, every weekend we go through, and there's more big tournaments, more Nationals, more events like that. We're definitely going to see that changing. But right now, upon this recording, that's kind of the deck to beat, and people are teching against it, but it's still doing pretty well. So that said, that could translate really well to a Blitz deck. We're probably not going to, say, oh, sure, that'll be totally great, 100%. There's a lot of other aggressive decks that can push back a little bit more damage maybe in that format. So we could go that way. We also could go the Earth way, and that's kind of what we're going to do today because this is mostly an Earth deck. We want to use more of the cards we got in this deck. We want it to be more true to the original one. So we're going to just lean into that Earth and sort of go in that regard. So we do have 32 Earth cards and 8 Lightning cards in this deck. So again, we're clearly in the realm of Earth in this regard. So and that means actual Earth cards as well as things that are fused with Earth. So that's kind of where we are, so we want to use more of those cards. Pending interest, we might make a lightning-focused one, if there are people who want to see that sort of thing. But we'll I digress. So what do we want to do to make this deck good? Well, or better, I should say. We want to lean into the, making very large hits. So going tall, maybe we go again, maybe we can swing that Rosetta Thorn at the end, but really it's about punching in for a lot of damage. That's kind of our key here. So what are we dropping out of this deck? Well, we want to get rid of the lightning because we could go the Blossoming Spellblade way, but that's more about going wide, and we're not really going wide in this deck. We're going tall. So we're just going to ditch all lightning cards unless they really matter. In this case, they don't really matter. We could be playing some flashes, which you do actually drop because we could give things go again. But again, that's more about wide, and we're not really going that way. So what are we actually dropping? We are dropping 2 red Entwined Lightnings. We are dropping 1 red Rites of Lightning. We are dropping the yellow Electrifies, the yellow Flash, and the yellow Lightning Surges. So all the lightning cards, just get them out of here. Yeah, we're losing, some cards. It's not that big of a deal. We'll be able to make it up later on. So, as we said, we could have gone different ways with that, but we really want to lean into Earth. So, what are we also dumping that is Earth related? Because we do have to, there are some, trim in the cards that maybe aren't the best here. So what we want to take out are the 2 blue So Tomorrows. So we drop in these bad boys. Again, these are nice Earth cards, but 2 or greater. There's not a lot of hits here. I think it's just Stir the Wildwoods in the stock deck that actually these hit as far as attack actions, things like that. So they're not great. Yes, the arsenal drawing a card is pretty cool, but it also costs 1. If it was free, definitely probably want to play that. But, so yeah, we didn't go that way. Summerwood Shelter, this is great. We don't really want to be blocking. We want to have, and no one loves to block in Flesh and Blood for the most part, unless you are playing that kind of deck. We want to be pounding in for some damage, so we don't really want this. Yes, it's an Earth card, but it doesn't block for anything. It only augments their block. So you get stuck with this in your hand. Cool, maybe you can pitch to Arcane Barrier to prevent Arcane. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good. So we're dropping that guy. The 2 red Rites of Replenishment. These are great, but they're not on rate. They're not awesome, and they're just not, they don't do enough. Yes, you can recycle things to the bottom of your deck, but ultimately we want more power than recursion at this point. We have some recursion in Evergreen anyways. We also dropped the 2 blue Rites of Replenishment. Same thing. These are just not good for rate. 2 for 4. The good thing is they did block for 3, and we are going to be a little bit lower on our blocks overall, but we'll make do. And lastly, the 2 Amulets of Earth. So, yes, we'll be fusing a lot, but and they pitch for blue, but ultimately they don't block themselves again, and they're just not really worth it. Like, we'll have enough Earth cards, once we sort of restock the deck after this anyway. So, we did drop a total of 17 cards. That's, almost half the deck, but again, we're ditching the Lightning, and we're getting literally some of those Earth cards. We only dropped, I think it was 4 Earth cards exactly, and we are actually going to be bumping up 10 more Earth cards, so we're actually be positive 6, so we can definitely get that fusion going, and it's not ultra critical, but it's definitely going to help make the deck hum. So we really want to always be hitting those Earth fusion cards with Earth cards. Really important. Alrighty, so we can pop on over to the actual upgraded deck here. So what did we add? Well, we're going to add Bramble Sparks, because those are really great. So right now we have the 2 red ones, we have the 2 blue ones, we are adding the yellow Bramble Sparks. It's just a great card. It's going to go into the non-attack action slot. It's going to be paired with other non-attack actions, and it's also going to help if you just go non-attack, attack, and then you can swing with Rosetta if we have some way to give it go again. So ultimately, plus the arcane damage, plus the actual bonus from fusing. So it's just a nice card. Yes, the extra damage from the yellow going from the blue, or the less one going from the yellow or the red to the yellow, isn't hypercritical, but it's also just another piece of damage that someone has to block. So. And sometimes we'll have on-hit effects that actually matter. So, Bramble Spark, great card, going to be happy with it. The other thing we're going to do is Stir the Wildwood. So we have the red, we have the yellow, we're adding into blue. So, yes, on rate, this isn't super great, 2 for 3, but if we're going to feel pretty good about getting a Bramble Spark in there, or some sort of arcane damage, which really it is just Bramble Spark, but you got 6 copies, you likely will be able to get some arcane chopped on there, and ultimately, we're really going to be fusing pretty consistently here. So, I'm not really too worried about that. This is at least going to be 2 for 5. Theoretically, if we get, even a blue Bramble Spark, that's 3 more damage, potentially, if they take the arcane, making it pretty worth the rate, if you can get the nice whole turn off. So, Stir the Wildwood, great card. This might be one of the ones that drop, depending on how the pitching sort of goes for you. You could swap this out with just something that's a little bit more powerful, maybe, I don't know, some big Earth beating card. But they've been okay. You just got to make sure you use them sort of maybe in the beginning of the game when you're trying to slog in for a little bit of damage, and then save your red ones for the end so you can really pound in for some heavy damage later on. Red Weave Earth. So we already had one. We added another one. These are going to be part of the bread and butter of the deck as well. We're going to be looking for Bramble Sparks. We're going to be looking for Weave Earths to get those 2 non-attack actions to get our Lightning Embodiment token. And we're going to be fusing pretty regularly, so hopefully we're going to be bumping in for some heavy damage here with these strung together. We're also adding the 2 yellow Weave Earth and the 2 blue Weave Earth. Again, adding the +1, and then ultimately we'll probably be doing always +2, isn't super great, but ultimately this is a non-attack action that will help us buff or get an Embodiment of Lightning token, or allow us to have Rosetta Thorn on if we go non-attack into an attack. So, very good. It also can lead into a later Majestic card we added to just augmenting the power of a card as well. So, they're not that bad. Yes, they only block for 2, but they're still somewhat of a powerful card, so we add them in. Next thing we added were the Red Autumn's Touch. So again, these are actually pretty good cards on rate. 7 for 3 ain't bad. This is a blue pitch and a card in your hand or a card in your arsenal. They block for 3, and they're an Earth card. So they're pretty powerful. We wanted to, add some oomph here if you're not always going to be having these sweet, Bramble Spark into Weave Earth turns. So you just need some beaters in general anyways. What else did we add? We added 1 red explosive growth. So we already had one. We added another one. This is just it's a good blocking card, and it also can cause some extra damage. If you have, like, say, an Embodiment of Lightning token left over from a previous turn, this will give you go again when you attack with it. So you maybe can actually get some extra oomph going in those turns, augment your power, that sort of thing. So maybe a card that might be dropped, but we'll have to play a little bit more to really know that. And then lastly, we added 1 red Evergreen. This is, again, a good on-rate card. If you can play from your arsenal, great. You can sort of loop those. You got 2 of them. Not the greatest way to do it, but it's something to do. And then lastly, we're going to bump to our 2 Majestics that we're adding. So, as you probably saw, we have 2 copies of Channel Mount Heroic. This is a pretty powerful card. We have a lot of Earth cards, so we're going to feel pretty good about consistently, unless we like just draw poorly or block out a lot, incorrectly, or aren't pitching well in general. This is going to be pretty consistently on for at least 1 to 2 turns. So if you're going to play it for 1 swing turn, that's not ideal. If you get 1 turn where you get to have an attack and you get 1 extra turn with it, then we're feeling pretty good. If you get a second, like a third actual full turn with it, then it's done its justice. Because, that's at least 9, possibly more damage if you're just swinging once a turn, and that's probably not all you're going to be doing. So feeling pretty good there. So yeah, those are 2 of those. They block for 3. We're thinking about just only to add 1 because they're not hyper powerful in groups, maybe. But they are expensive, and they are only red pitch, but they block for 3. So we added a second one in just to be happy. Now the other majestics we added were the Force of Nature. So these are the Briar specialization. This is the Earth Fusion one of her majestics. Black for 3, which is nice, but really can just make you go off and go crazy. So everything sort of that is augmented up from its base power, you get to draw a card, and your next thing gets +1, and it is itself a non-attack action. So you're already halfway there to creating and Embodiment Lightning. Your next attack is going to be buffed, and if it hits, you get to draw a card. And just keep pushing through. So this is kind of a big deal. You can make some pretty big turns. They're not amazingly explosive. This isn't like a 30 damage turn or anything like that. But you can make these go, you can have some pretty crazy turns. And that's kind of what we're looking for. These are not necessarily going to be cards that you're like, oh, save and save and save. And no, it's like, if you believe that you can make it work with the hand you have, probably go for it. Or maybe you throw it in Arsenal and save it for when you get that key turn. Don't feel afraid to block with these early on if you need them. Don't feel afraid. Obviously, you want to pitch them away early because you'd rather have them for the end game, so you can really have that pounding turn towards the end game. But ultimately, they are utility card as well, so use them for pitch, use them for blocking early on in the game. That's okay. You got 2 of them. Those are the actual cards we added as far as like the actual cards you're going to play through your deck. We also added in another weapon. So Rosetta Thorn is a fantastically powerful weapon. There is no complaints there. If you can have that sequence of non-attack, attack, and then have a way to have that go again, then you are going to be a very happy camper. It is a constructed winner there. I mean, yeah, there's arguments that Duskblade could be better, but ultimately I think actually in this current state of affairs, we'd see, I think Rosetta Thorn might be played over the Duskblade. It is a very powerful card, but, well, I don't know. Maybe the Lightning ones would be pretty happy. You don't actually have to hit. I don't know. It's debatable. It's not for this particular deck. The Rosetta Thorn is a much better weapon. Yes, maybe in the Lightning Briar deck, that Duskblade is the one we want to play for Blitz, but this is the Earth one. So Rosetta Thorn probably going to be your best one. The only time you might switch to the Reaving Blade, which is the other weapon, is if you're going to be playing against someone with a lot of life gain, which you might not see a lot of in Blitz. With Kano being here, it can be a pretty good strategy in some particular decks that are maybe more defensive, and maybe you can get around having a lot of defense reactions against Kano with a bunch of life gain. Ultimately, it's just a poor setup against Kano. Most decks just aren't great against Kano, but it's a way to sort of push those decks that, all right, maybe they're playing incidental life gain that can put them out of the range of like, cool, you're about to smash them in for this lethal turn and they gain some life. The Root Link is sort of just flick off that little switch that can give them an edge, and give you the edge. So that's our weapon change. Equipment, the stock loadout was actually pretty good. So if we bounce back here, the stock weapons here. So we had the Heart and Cross Strap, the Iron Rock Gauntlet, and the Plume of Evergrowth, and Southwest Sweetheart. These are actually quite good cards. Allowing yourself to get go again on one of those key turns to maybe swing in with Rosetta Thorn for 4 more damage to 2 and 2. This can be a pretty nice way to do that. Yeah, it's a one-time thing, but this is what we get with commons and budget things like that. Plume of Evergrowth is always nice to get something back at an opportune time to slam something back on the top of your deck and then just boom, whack it out when you need to. So very nice. You'll notice that it doesn't block. Neither does the Shockwave Suede Hides. Neither does the Heart and Cross Strap, but the Heart and Cross Strap can make your sort of Wildwood free essentially, or knock off the cost of things like that. So very nice card to have just to make that big turn that you want even bigger. Maybe you have the resources to then play another card, something like that. Iron Rock Gauntlet is the only thing that actually blocks, and it's not that bad. So what did we do? We upgraded for, obviously, again, standard loadout's good. Goliath Gauntlet, we added in here, going in first for the attack one. So this is just nice to have something even bigger again. You can pump a stir with this bad boy. Just try to beat in a little bit harder. Any of the big, like Burgeoning, Autumn's Touch, those are all going to be turned on with this thing as well. So if you really need to push through that turn to get some damage in, Goliath Gauntlet will do it. Also added in Aether Ironweave. sometimes you need some extra resources. This is a great way to have it. And the battle worn is just bananas. Again, we have a lot of things that don't have battle worn down at the common slot, so this is really nice to have one of those. And then we go into our null rune, full set of null rune. So ultimately, you kind of need it, depending upon how Kano is prevalent or not. You won't be sliding those in. You may be sliding them in. Who knows? I think I meant to put boots in here. I didn't put the boots in. I think maybe we ran out of space, and I was like, we'll just sacrifice one of them because the suede hides are actually pretty important for those go wide turns. So ultimately, no one's ever perfectly set up for Kano, but you're just going to have to roll with it. So that's kind of it. So what does this deck actually do? Well, ultimately, you're looking to try to go in for some 2 non-attacks and then a big attack. And then, ultimately, it's like a Bramble Spark into a Weave Earth into a Stir the Wildwood that can go again from those two, from the Lightning Embodiment, and then you fuse all of those things. And then so you're going to come in for Arcane, you're going to come in for all this other stuff. So that's going to be, if they take the Arcane from that first, if they're all reds, you take Arcane from the Bramble Spark trigger on the card, the Stir is going to be coming in, the whole turn is going to be 16 damage for that. So if they are taking that Arcane, that's pretty big. And you can then follow that up with 4 and 4, or 2 and 2 from the Rosetta Thorn as well, because you'll have go again. This is all dependent upon playing the Stir the Arsenal, having Earth cards to fuse all of these things, and resource cards available in hand. So it's a little bit Magical Christmas Land, but it's also, this deck does hum at 5-card hands. We'll get into that sort of thing later. But total output, 18 to 20 damage in that turn isn't too shabby for, again, a budget deck with cards that are all, there's a couple rares in there, and that's really it. It's actually a very powerful set of cards there. Another brutal turn we could have is anything that, like, sort of kick off with Force of Nature, say it's from your arsenal, throw in a Bramble Spark, you got your Embodiment Lightning, throw in with a big Stir, or maybe we have Explosive Growths going on, to add damage to, basically, essentially, if that hits, every attack card you're going to play is going to have a buff. So if any of them hit, you're going to be drawing cards, keeping things chaining through, and just try to, go to Pound Town. So that's kind of, a little bit where we go into the wider part. Earth doesn't really go that wide, but, Force of Nature can sort of help that, keep you rolling in cards and that sort of stuff. So that is sort of the main things there. And then adding into, like, say, Channel Mount Heroic, having that down from a previous turn, then having that 5-card hand, that one just really putting the pounds on them. It's not necessarily perfect in this deck because we are sort of relying on our second attack in a turn to be a Rosetta Thorn. It may be not the perfect deck to play here, but we do have Burgeonings, which can be the second attack. We have the Autumn's Touch, again, Evergreen. Those are the other ones that can actually go in there and hit for those again later. So it's not only going to be, say, 3 damage turn, but ultimately, even if it stays around for 1 turn, not ideal. If it stays around for 2 turns, like the turn you play, you swing in for something, and then the next turn, that's 6 extra damage. That's, 2 cards from hand, theoretically, depending on how they block. If you get an extra string in that second turn, then that's 9, and then you go through a 3rd turn, it can get pretty brutal. But ultimately, maybe not the best deck for it. Tinkering with it a little bit, sometimes it's good, sometimes bad, maybe drop down to 1 copy, who knows. It does block for 3, which we're talking about, but so that's the deck. Again, leaning on how you sort of play those turns out can be kind of important depending on how your opponent will, say, block arcane damage. So if you're going with a Bramble Spark and then a Weave and then an attack, if they are going to pitch to prevent the arcane damage, might determine, like, cool, if they have resources floating, maybe I don't go with the Rosetta, maybe I try to do a different attack. You can always think about that as you're going through those turns, because ultimately you're trying to set up this thing, do the same thing every turn, push out this, a consistent amount of damage that hopefully is too much that your opponent can block, and then, see how they're reacting. Likely, if you're going to be presenting these big 5-card smashing hands each turn, they're probably going to not want to, spend the resources on Arcane and have 1 less card to block in hand. So likely you always want to lead into the Rosetta Thorn because it is 2 unblockable damage theoretically towards the end of the turn. So that can just sort of determine how you do that. And then, as we said before, it is a deck that likes to have the tempo, just like most decks. The 4 to 5 card hands are kind of critical for this. So you're going to have to make sure that you have the tempo. Just push real hard to get it. If you're starting to tip back, you might have to take a hit to reset, get a bigger turn, and when you're leading up to that, try to just chunk in for a little bit of damage, get an embodiment so you don't have to block as much in that turn leading up to it. So really, it's important that you know that going in, that there might be a swing turn that you're going to take a bunch of damage. Try to time that so you can have a good rebound, set up the right turn, wait for that right turn, wait for the arsenal of the card you want, and then come out after that turn very, very strong. we don't have a lot of 3 blocks. So that's why we're saying lean on those embodiments if you can. And that is all for the budget upgrade deck for Blitz. So yeah, try it out. It's very cheap. It's got 4 majestics. I think it's all like those majestics are under $6 for all of them, probably shipped. So not too crazy there. I definitely consider giving it a try. Give it a try. Let me know what kind of crazy turns you have. Let me know your damage output. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. I know that the lightning versions can get a little crazy with all the ball lightning stuff, so there's definitely more damage out there, but we'll have to see how it goes. So that will be it for this budget upgrade. Probably trying to do the other guys, other heroes from this set pretty soon, so take a look for those. Again, shout out to our Discord. Go ahead and join, link below. Trying to get some giveaways going, some tournaments, all that kind of stuff, so please check that out. And that'll be it for this budget upgrade video today. So just want to say thank you all for hanging in the cellar, and cheers.